सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ शङ्कारूपेण मच्चित्तं पङ्कीकृतमभूद्यया किङ्करीयस्य सामाया शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये प्रह्लादवरदो देवो यो नृसिंहः परो हरिः नृसिंहोपासकं नित्यं तं नृसिंहगुरुं भजे श्रीसच्चिदानन्दशिवाभिनव्य नृसिंहभारत्यभिधान् यतीन्द्रान् विद्यानिधीन् मन्त्रनिधीन् सदात्मनिष्ठान् भजे मानवशम्भुरूपान् सदात्मध्याननिरतं वृषगेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीम् विवेकिनं महाप्रज्ञं धैर्यौदार्यक्षमानिधिं सदाभिनवपूर्वं तं विद्यातीर्थगुरुं भजे अज्ञानां जाह्नवीतीर्थं विद्यातीर्थं विवेकिनां सर्वेषां सुखदं तीर्थं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखरभारतीम् ॐ वर्स् नम्बर् 24 प्रकाशोऽर्कस्य तो यस्य शैत्यम् अग्निर्यथोष्णता स्वभावः सच्चिदानन्द नित्यनिर्मलतात्मनः. So Shankaracharya is talking about the swabhava or the nature of the Atma. And he says, just like the swabhava of the sun is illumination, Arka is the sun, is illumination, the swabhava of water, toyaha, water, is shaityam, is coolness. Just like the swabhava of Agni is Ushnata, fire, is heat. Similarly, the nature of the Atma is Sat, Chit, Ananda. So what is Sat? Sat is existence. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is bliss. But when we talk about Ananda in the context of Atma Swarupa, we are not talking about some experiential bliss. Because as was said in the Taittiriya Upanishad, in the Ananda Mimamsa section, where the human being's happiness was taken as one unit. Yuvasyat sadhu yuvadhyayakah asishto dridishto balishtah tasyayam prithvi vittasya purnasyat. So let us take a human being who is fit, strong, powerful, who is the king of the entire world. The entire Prithvi is his wealth. That ideal human being's happiness, if we take as one unit, the Upanishad then goes on to say that the happiness that human being experiences 100 times that happiness is the happiness experienced by the Manushya Gandharva. And then 100 times that is of the Manushya Gandharva is the Deva Gandharva. 100 times that is the happiness of the Karma Devas, etc., etc. So there is an Ananda Mimamsa or an inquiry into the nature of experiential happiness. And what the Shruti concludes is that every species has within it some innate capacity to experience happiness. And that innate capacity to experience happiness cannot be the Atma Swarupa, because the Atma Swarupa is common across all species. It is common across every entity that we consider living and non-living. Therefore, the Ananda, which is the Atma Swarupa, is not the experiential Ananda. It is not the Priya, Moda, Pramoda Vritti that is present in the Anandamaya Kosha. It is not any experiential happiness which is subject to gradation. It is a limitlessness. Anantatvam is what is actually referred to as Ananda. Atmananda refers to Purnatvam, a sense of completeness. So, this is not something that you experience because that Atma is the one that is experiencing. It is the experiencer's Atma. It is the subject of the experience. It is not the object of experience. Therefore, here, by Shankaracharya talking about Ananda as being Atma Swarupa, We must understand what that Ananda is. It is not some experiential Ananda at all. And it is Anantatvam, which means that it is limitless. It is not limited by space, Desha. It is not limited by time, Kala. It is not limited by Vastu. So, what is this Desha, Kala, Vastu, Parichinna, Rahitatvam? The absence of limitation by space, time, and objects. So, if you look at one particular chair, I am seated, this physical body, I'm not I, this physical body is sitting in one chair. It is not sitting in that chair at the moment. So, the physical body has a limitation. It is present in one location, but it is not present in some other location. That is a spatial location, limitation. Similarly, the physical body has a birth, the physical body has a death also. At some point, this is going to be born, at another point, this is going to die. So there is no, there is limitlessness, temporal limitlessness is not present for the body. It is temporally limited. It is finite, it has a birth, and it will certainly have a death also. So therefore, the Atma does not have this temporal limitation that the physical body has. Similarly, this physical body is not the physical body of a woman, it's not the physical body of a cow, it's not the physical body of a dog, not the physical body of a deva. It is a human male physical body. Therefore, there is the nature of this body as a human male is not present in another body which is not a human male. It is not present in a human female body. It is not present in an animal body also. Therefore, there is an object-wise limitation. That is the Vastu Parichedatvam. Therefore, the Atma Swarupa is not like this at all. It does not have a spatial limitation because Atma is everywhere. All that exists is Atma, and anything that appears in a finite location. But Atma itself is not limited by the location at all. In fact, space itself is located within Atma. Space itself is born from Atma. So how can Atma be limited by space? Similarly, Atma is not limited by time. That is why Acharya also says Nitya in this verse. And it is also not limited by object also. The Atma that is present here is also present there, is also present there, it's present everywhere. Nothing you can point to and say that is not Atma, because everything is only an appearance within that Atma. So therefore, there is no object-wise limitation also. That is why Shankaracharya, when he talks about Nitya and Nirmalata, essentially in another way, that Nityatvam is actually Kala Parichinna Rahitatvam. It is the absence of limitation in temporally. Therefore, it is Nitya or eternal. Similarly, it is Nirmala. Nirmala means there is no impurity that is present in it. There is no contamination by Punya or Papa. In Advaita Vedanta, Punya also is a limitation only, it's an impurity, it's a malam. Why? Because even Punya leads to next birth, Punarjanma. That is also, Punya also leads to samsara. Just like Papa leads to samsara, Punya also leads to samsara. Atma is free from Punya Papa. Anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat, anyatra asmat krita kritat, as Nachiketa said, asked Yamadharmaraja. So, it is not easy to conceive of such an Atma because our minds are not ready to do that. How can something finite like the mind conceive of something which is infinite? That is why, in order to purify the mind to do that, there is upasana that's prescribed. So we start off with some finite object that we take, some Rupa Dhyana. And through that Rupa Dhyanam, we develop the capacity to focus on an object. And we use some finite object to point the mind towards. And that can be some Devata Rupa Dhyana, as prescribed in the Shastra. Then after some time, that Rupa Dhyanam goes into Rupa Dhyana. That is, it is a formless form. So it is like, for example, like a Saligramam or a Shivalingam. It has a form, but it does not have particularities or visheshas in that form. So it doesn't have hands, eyes, legs, etc. It's a form on upon which we superimpose Mahavishnu, Parameshwara, etc., and do a upasana of that. After that, we do Arupa Dhyanam, like Arupa Akasha Dhyanam. And after that, our mind is sufficiently purified through Rupa Dhyanam, Rupa Dhyanam, Arupa Dhyanam. We finally come to Jnanam, which allows us to comprehend the nature of Atma. And it is through that Jnanam that this formless consciousness is comprehended. And he says this is the intrinsic nature, the Swabhava of the Atma, Sat, Chit, Anandaha, Nityaha, Nirmalata. This is the Atma Swabhava, just like Arkasya Prakashaha, Toyasya Shaityam, Agnehe Ushnata. Okay, this much we had seen previously. Now we will read the next verse, verse number 25. Atmanah Satyadamshascha Buddhir Vrittirithi Dvayam Samyojya cha Vivekena Janami iti pravartate. So these next two verses are quite subtle and they're actually quite deep in their meaning. So we will spend some time on that. So what Shankaracharya is saying is that the Atma Swarupa is beyond all transactions. It's avyavaharyam. The Atma's presence is required, but it is not involved. It's required for what? It's required for transactions. So the Atma Swarupa's presence is required for transactions, but the Atma Swarupa itself is not involved in any transaction. So any transaction can be a Jnana Vyavahara, a cognitive transaction, which involves a knower, a known object in the process of knowing, or it can be a Karma Vyavahara, actions, which will involve a Karta, a Karma, and a Karma Vishaya. So Shankaracharya says that the Atma is beyond Jnana Vyavahara and Karma Vyavahara. So the question then arises at this point, okay, Atma is beyond Jnana Vyavahara, cognitive transaction, but we directly experience knowing. We say, I am the knower. So what is that? Who is the one that is knowing? If Atma is not the knower, who is the knower? To answer this question, this verse has come. So Shankaracharya says, it cannot be the Atma which is the knower. It cannot be the mind that is the knower. Then what is the knower? It is the Chidabhasa or the reflected consciousness. So the mind is very pure. It's Sattva Guna Pradhanam. So it is predominantly composed of the Sattva Guna, because of which it is capable of reflecting consciousness. And just like when a face appears in front of the mirror reflects the face. When the mind is proximate to consciousness, there is a reflection that appears in that mind. Reflection of consciousness appears in that mind, and it is this Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness, that is involved in all transactions. The original consciousness, the bimbam, is not involved. It is only the pratibambam, the reflection, that is involved. So the reflected consciousness, that is consciousness reflected in the buddhi, buddhista chidabhasa, which is the jnata or the knower. The original consciousness is not the knower. And when so then he goes on to talk about how the process of knowledge occurs. So whenever the mind comes into contact with objects through the senses, through the eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, tongue, or the skin, through those sense organs, what happens is that a thought is formed in the mind. and the thought comes into contact with those objects. So when you see a pot, a ghatakara vritti, a pot cognition arises. When we look at a cloth, a patakara vritti arises. When you look at a human being, a manushakara vritti arises. Now, what is a thought? Thought is just like a modification of the mind. So when the thought arises, because the thought is simply a modification of the mind, the thought is also, like the mind, a medium that's capable of reflecting consciousness. So just like we had said, the consciousness reflected in the buddhi, the mind, is the jnata. The consciousness that is reflected in the manovritti, buddhi vritti, the cognition, the thought, that thought reflected consciousness is jnanam. So when we say I have ghata jnanam, I have knowledge of the thought, what we mean is that in our mind there is a cognition that has arisen, which has the cognition of the thought that has arisen, which has reflected consciousness on in it. So there is this thought reflected consciousness is what is known as jnana, ghata jnana. So when we have purusha jnanam, it is the thought reflected in the purusha vritti, purushakara vritti. When we have cloth jnanam, we have consciousness reflected in the patakara vritti, cloth akara vritti. When we have pot cognition, we have consciousness reflected in the ghatakara vritti. And so the thoughts in the mind keep flowing. It's a never ending, never ceasing flow of thoughts in the mind. And each time a thought arises, consciousness is reflected in the thought, and that is the jnana of that particular thought. So the jnanam keeps changing, but the consciousness, the original consciousness, does not change. So here, the knower is jnata, is the consciousness reflected in the buddhi, and jnanam or knowledge is consciousness reflected in the thought. When the jnanam and the jnata come together, then you have jnana vyavahara, a cognitive transaction. And this happens in the waking and the dream states. In the deep sleep state, what happens is that the mind is resolved. Therefore, the jnata, who is the consciousness reflected in the mind, he is also resolved. And therefore, there is no jnata in deep sleep. Similarly, when the mind is resolved, the vritti also is resolved. The cognition, all cognitions are resolved. Therefore, there is no jnana. There is no consciousness reflected in the vritti also. So what is there? The original consciousness is still there, but there is no jnata. Buddhistha chidabhasa is not there. Vrittistha chidabhasa is not there. Consciousness reflected in the mind is not there. Consciousness reflected in the thought is not there in the deep sleep state. And therefore, what you can see here is that when there is chidabhasa, there is a transaction in the dream and the waking state. And in the deep sleep state, when the chidabhasa is not present, there is no transaction. From this, it follows, thus it is the chidabhasa that is the basis for transactions. It is not the original consciousness. It is not the Atma Chaitanyam. It is chidabhasa. It is the reflection of the consciousness in the mind or the thought. That is the cause for jnana vyavahara. And therefore, Atma Chaitanyam is avyavaharyam. Now, this is a very significant word which occurs in the 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. Nantah pragyam na bahish pragyam nobhayatah pragyam na pragyana ghanam na pragyam na pragyam adrishyam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshyam, etc. So what this means is that the Turiya or Atma Chaitanya is Avyavaharya, and that Avyavaharyam is what is being established in these two verses that we're talking. So it says Atmanaha Satchidamshascha. So in the previous verse, it had said the Swabhava of the Atma is Sat Chit, etc. The Sat and Chit, existence and consciousness, which is the nature of consciousness, Samyojya, when it is proximate to what? We have to supply the word to Buddhi. Atmanaha Satchidamshascha Buddhi Samyojya, when it is proximate to the Buddhi, what happens? Again, we have to supply. Gyata Chidabhasaha Kalpyate. The knower or the Gyata, the Buddhist Chidabhasa is generated. And Buddher Vrittiriti Dvayam. So Atmanaha Buddher Vrittiriti Dvayam. Vrittishta Chidabhasa Kalpyate, you have to supply. When the Atma comes into proximity with the thought which belongs to the mind, Buddher Vrittihi, then Jnanam or Vrittistha Chidabhasa emerges. Here the word Dvayam refers to the two, that is Atma and Vritti being proximate to each other. But who am I? Here Shankaracharya says, I am not Chidabhasa, but I am Chit, the original consciousness. That is the fact. But what happens? What happens is that because of ignorance, people associate themselves with the Chidabhasa, when in reality they are the Chaitanya, which is the witness to the Chidabhasa also. And why is that? He says avivekena. Due to the lack of discrimination, people start using expressions like I know, janami, iti pravartate. Really speaking, the original consciousness, which is everyone's true swarupa, is not involved in any transaction at all. But because of a aviveka, a wrong notion, one starts saying, I know. And the same idea occurs in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita also. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavit pashyan srinvan sprushan jigran, etc. So, the true knower of truth, the tattvavit, what does he think? Naiva kinchit karomiti iti manyeta. He thinks, I really do not know anything. Even when what? Even when the body is seeing, Pashyan, Shrinvan, even when it's hearing, Jigran, Sprishan, when it's smelling, when it's touching, etc. During all these various experiences too, the Tattvavit says, I am not doing anything at all. Why is that? Because he is the original consciousness here. And therefore, he knows for a fact that he, the original consciousness, is not doing anything. Then what is this Chidabhasa? Is it real or mithya? It is mithya. All the problems are for a mithya Chidabhasa. And as long as one continues to believe it is real, the Chidabhasa is real, and that I am the Chidabhasa, the problem also will be real. When we realize with Viveka that I am not the Chidabhasa, I am the Chaitanyam, then we realize that these are not my problems at all in reality. The Chidabhasa is going through karma, prarabdha karma. That's all. There is nothing to fear. There is no reason to worry. There is no problem at all. Because we can be free. We know the truth. Once we know the truth that we are the original consciousness, none of the problems of samsara will really affect us. And this is a fact which we will realize at some point through Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. After spending some time, a period of time, doing Vedanta Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana, we will come to that realization automatically. But it will require the grace of a guru. It will require the grace of Shastra. Anyway, we'll look at the next verse. आत्मनो विक्रिया नास्ति बुद्धेर्बोधो न जात्विति जीवः सर्वमलं ज्ञात्वा ज्ञाता दृष्टेति मुह्यति. Here Shankaracharya is explaining why the Chidabhasa must be introduced. So what is the reason to postulate the presence of a Chidabhasa for Jnana Vyavahara, for a cognitive process? So why can't we say there is consciousness and the mind, and just these two are sufficient? So what is the purpose of this third entity? So the answer to the question is by examining whether the knowing process is possible for the Atma and the mind. Now, upon analysis, what we realize is that the knowing process cannot belong to the pure Atma. It cannot belong to the mind also. Therefore, we require the presence of a third entity that is somehow connected with the third process, which is with the knowing process. So, knowing takes place. That is a matter of common experience. So, there must be someone who knows. The one who knows is different from consciousness and is different from the mind also. So, why cannot the knowing process be associated with the Atma? If we think about it, again, this is a very technical verse. In fact, some of the ideas in this verse find a presence in the Samanvaya Adhikarana of the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So, the Tattva Samanvaya Adhikaranam, in one discussion, Shankaracharya says that we have to examine the nature of any process. Any process involves a modification or a change. No action or no process can occur anywhere without modifying the locus of that action. You take any action, from a simple matter of observation to a physical action, there will be some change in the observer, there will be some change in the actor. Therefore, if the Atma was the knower, then Atma would also be subject to change. So what? So what if the Atma is subject to change? Then the very Nityata, the eternalness of the Atma itself will be destroyed, because we know from experience that every entity that we encounter with changes. There is a modification. We also know that every entity that we encounter is also subject to destruction. By extending that, if the Atma also changed in reality, then the Atma is also subject to destruction. It cannot be eternal. Therefore, it follows that in order for the Atma to be eternal, it must be unchanging. You cannot have a permanent entity that changes. Therefore, the Atma, the pure consciousness, is nirvikara, changeless, and hence it is nitya, permanent. Therefore, if Atma was the knower, then the Atma will also be subject to change. Therefore, Atma cannot be the knower. It cannot be the Jnata. So what about the mind? Can mind be the knower? If you think, the mind also cannot be the knower. So what is the mind? If you look at in Shastra, it says the mind is also a jadam. It is an inert substance. It is a product of Pancha Mahabhuta. It's a product, it's a Sukshma, it's a product of the Sukshma Bhutas, not the Stula Bhutas, but still it is a product. It's a product of ultimately matter. It may be subtle matter, but it is matter nonetheless. Now, how can matter know? Because knowledge is always associated with sentience. With only a conscious entity can know. If the mind is an inert entity, how can it know? Therefore, the mind also cannot be the knower. It is for this reason, to account for the fact that knowledge seems to happen despite Atma being unchanging and the mind being incapable of knowledge, knowledge still occurs. There is a knower. Therefore, it follows that the one who knows is a changing but conscious entity. And what is that? That is the Chidabhasa. It is the reflection. The mind changes. When the mind changes, the reflection also changes. From consciousness, we have sentience. From mind, we have change. And it is the combination of these two leads to the changing entity that is the knower, the Jnata. And that's what Shankaracharya is saying, Atmanaha Vikriya Nasti. The Atma cannot have any modification. Therefore, the knowing process cannot be associated with the Atma. Buddhehe jatu bodho nasti. The mind verily cannot have sentience. Sentience. Why? Because it is achetanam. It is jadam. It is inert. Therefore, the knowing process cannot be associated with the mind also. Then what? The knowing process must necessarily be associated with a third entity, the Chidabhasa. But what happens? Jivaha sarvam alangyatva, the jiva not knowing any of these details, that is, not knowing that this reflected consciousness is something that has come into existence because of the manifestation of the mind having a reflection of consciousness, incorrectly thinks that I am this reflection, forgetting his true nature as the original. He because the reflecting medium is present in the waking state and the dream state. The process of knowing is constant in the waking and dream state. There is a knower who constantly keeps experiencing different emotions, different objects, different cognitions. The jiva erroneously takes that reflection as the original and says, I know, I see, I hear, I smell, jnata drashtaham iti mukhyati. He deludedly thinks, I am the knower, I am the seer, etc. So we look at the next verse number 27. Rajju sarpa vadatmanam jivam gyatva bhayam vahet naham jivah paramatmeti gyatam che nirbhayo bhavet. So we have seen that all transactions only belong to the reflection, the Chidabhasa. After knowing this, no worldly transaction can really bother us because we know that I am not the knower, I am not the transactor. And therefore, any transactions that happen and any problems that happen are only for the Chidabhasa. It is the Chidabhasa who is the samsari who travels. It is the Chidabhasa who goes from location to location, from one loka to another loka. It is the Chidabhasa who is the actor. It is the Chidabhasa who is the karta. It is the Chidabhasa who is the bhokta. It is the Chidabhasa who is the samsari. And how is that? All the properties of the mind, all the limitations of the mind, the Chidabhasa has, because it is a reflection. So just like in a mirror which is dirty, the reflection also will appear dirty. So if the mirror has like some dirt on it, when we look at our face in that mirror, we'll think that our face is dirty and we'll keep on cleaning it. But what will happen? We'll whenever we go to the mirror, we will keep seeing that the face is dirty. What is wrong? Why is there dirt there? However much I'm cleaning my face, the dirt is not going. When really speaking, what we should be doing, we should clean the mirror. Once the mirror is clean, the reflection will be clean. So the dirt that appears in the reflection is not really affecting the original face at all. The face can be dirty because of two reasons. Either the face is dirty, the reflection can be dirty because of two reasons. Either the face is dirty or the mirror is dirty. But if the face is clean and the mirror is dirty, the reflection will appear dirty. Similarly, the all the problems of samsara that we see are because of the limitations of the mind being present in the Chidabhasa. This Chidabhasa is a combination of the consciousness and of the mind. All the limitations of the mind are present in the Chidabhasa. The consciousness is present also. The fact that we say, I am a conscious entity, that consciousness is also present in the Chidabhasa. And that is the problem. So you have a finite entity which has all the problems of the mind and is also sentient. It's also sentient. So the sentient entity thinks that it has got a problem. When really speaking, it is a mithya sentient entity. It is not a real sentient entity. So therefore, so long as we do not know that the Chidabhasa is mithya, so long out of aviveka or wrong knowledge, we mix up the Chidabhasa for the Chaitanyam and we say, I am the knower, I am the doer, I am the karta, I am the bhokta, I am the samsari, I am limited, I am angry, I am happy, I am sad, I am wealthy, I am poor. All of that are properties of the Chidabhasa. Now, once you know the knowledge from Viveka that you are not the Gyata, that all these are simply properties and problems of a mithya entity, then one can transcend those problems. Just like the waker is not affected in the slightest with the problems faced by the dreamer. The dreamer can go through all sorts of nightmarish situations, but it does not affect the waker in the least. A king may go to sleep and dream that he's a pauper and he's struggling, but it does not affect the king in the least. Similarly, once we know that we are not that pauper, in reality we are the king, just like Karna, in one sentence he heard and realized he's not Radheya, he's Kaunteya. He is not some poor man, but is actually the rightful heir to the entire kingdom. Similarly, by hearing the Tattvamasi Mahavakya from our Guru, we realize that we are not some finite entity that is struggling to make ends meet. Rather, we are the infinite entity. Nothing in this apparent existence is going to affect us in the slightest, be it positive or negative. All the happiness that is being experienced also is not ours. It is simply a figment of appearance that we take to be real. But we can go around, once we have that knowledge, we can go around blissfully transacting, knowing that it is not I who transacts. So, like for example, when we see a photograph of ourselves and we show it to our friend and say, I am in this photograph, both the both us and our friend, we both know it is not I who am in the photograph because I am here as a man. The friend does not say, hey, how come you're sitting here and outside? I can see you. How can you be in the photo? He also knows that it's an image. Knowing it's an image, he also understands that you mean the image you are for this figuratively saying I am present in the photo, I am in the photograph. Similarly, when I'm saying it, I am also figuratively saying I'm in the photograph. Both the hearer and the speaker are using this figuratively. So there is no problem. But when we say I am the actor, etc., that is not a figurative knowledge, it's a genuine misunderstanding. So there is no problem in figuratively saying I'm acting, provided one knows the truth that one is never acting. So if someone asks, where are you, who are you, etc., if you say, no, I am the Satchidananda Atma, I am everywhere, etc., that's not going to help. So for the sake of transactions, you can say, I'm so and so, I have come from this place, this is what I do, etc., you can say. So, provided you internally know that nobody has come from anywhere, nobody can go anywhere, one is completely free from transactions. As long as one knows that, one can apparently engage in transactions for the purpose of Leela, or just for a play, for a game, we can enjoy these things. So anyway, so this is what Shankaracharya is saying. Atmanam jivam gyatva, so long as one mistakes oneself to be the Chidabhasa. Here jiva means Chidabhasa. Bhayam vahit. One is always insecure, one is always fearful. The Chidabhasa, as I said, is the karta, bhokta, subject to prarabdha, subject to all sorts of trials and tribulations. And this is like what? Rajju Sarpavati. So long as one looks at the Rajju Sarpa, the rope, and thinks it to be a snake, there will be bhaya, bhayam vahit. Similarly, so long one looks at consciousness and thinks it is the jiva, it is Chidabhasa, bhayam vahit. There will be fear. He's using Rajju Sarpavati. So the jivatvam, the Chidabhasa, is mithya like Rajju Sarpa. Like the rope snake, the Chidabhasa is also mithya. So when will you become nirbhaya? Naham jivaha paramatma iti jnatam chet nirbhayo bhavet. Once you know that you are not this Chidabhasa, limited Chidabhasa, you are not the samsari, you are paratma. Para-atma, absolute self. What is the absolute self? One that is beyond this world. Really speaking, you do not belong to the world at all, Shankaracharya is saying. You are beyond the world. You are not part of this empirical transactional world. Once you know that, there is nirbhayatvam. Atmanam chet vijaniyat ayamasmiti purushah kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. Once one knows that one is the Atma, that this consciousness is the Atma, I am this consciousness, desiring what? For whose benefit will you struggle along with the body? The body may struggle, the mind may struggle, but you know that you are not the one that is struggling. That is simply a prarabdha of the body. Prarabdhaya samarpitam svavopuhu ityesha manisha mama, as Shankaracharya had said. So the body is undergoing challenges, it will have its problems, it will face trials and tribulations. I am very peaceful. Once you have that knowledge, Gyatam chet nirbhayo bhavet, fearlessness. Abhayam vai janako praptosi, as Yagyavalkya had told Janaka. You have attained fearlessness, O Janaka. This is not something to be attained after some time, after a long upasana of jnana, of this knowledge, I'll get it. No. Simply know it. Simply claim your true nature for yourself. That we are not the Chidabhasa, we are not a Jiva, we are the Para-Atma. And this identity of Aham Brahmasmi, Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha is the ultimate teaching of the Upanishads. And to teach that, to convey that, is why the Atma Bodha is here. With that, we will conclude today's talk and we will take up the next verses in the next talk. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti